So here we are, the Bent Not Broken patient panel to increase awareness of SPS and also fundraise for better research, better treatments, any treatments that would work, right, for SPS. And the reason this panel is gathering today is because we all know that famous singer Celine Dion has been diagnosed with SPS, and she has decided to go public with her story. And this panel of SPS patients is an international panel, so let's get right to it. We plan to have at least 2 gatherings like this. This is the first. So thank you for listening and watching. I want to begin with Leah because Bent Not Broken is her baby, her social media channel devoted to SPS awareness. Leah, if you would start with your name, your age, and where you're located.
So my name's Leah, and I'm 37, and was diagnosed 3 years ago. And I live in Lebanon, not by choice. I used to live in Western Africa with my husband, but due to my diagnosis, I came back to Lebanon.
Right. Ali?
My name is Allison Lafferty. I am 26. I was diagnosed 3 years ago, and I currently live in Nevada in the United States.
Angela?
I'm Angela Davis. I'm currently living in the United States. I'm 48 years old, and I was diagnosed officially 10 years ago with SPS.
And Ilea?
And also me, diagnosed 10 years ago. My name is Ilea Khan, and I'm living in Connecticut in the United States. I'm also a physician licensed in Connecticut and Massachusetts, a psychiatrist. So that's pretty close to neurology. And I'm 41 and diagnosed at 31.
I just wanted to add, I'm Kimberly Loman-Clapp. I am the host. I do not have SPS, but I am an SPS ally. And when I was a TV reporter, I was the first reporter in the country to report on stiff person syndrome. That was back in 2018. So a devoted ally and passionate to help these ladies tell their story to the world. So by a show of hands, each of you throughout this SPS journey, how many of you have had difficulty walking? How many of you need assistance with daily tasks? How many of you have found your voice has been impacted, your vocal cords? Wow, okay. First, I think it's important that we talk for a moment about where each of you is today, at this moment. We can't tell because we have these backgrounds, but Ali, tell us where you are and what's going on for you right now.
So I am actually receiving my treatment, which is IVIG right now. That's what you see right here. And if I didn't have the background, right behind me is the tall pole with all the medicine hanging off of it. I receive my treatment every 2 days, once a month for 2 days. And right now that's been working for me. And you feel a little wonky afterwards, but a day or two later you start to feel it kick in, and then you start to feel a little bit better. At least for myself. I know everyone is a little different, and at different stages on the spectrum. But for me, my regimen right now is the IVIG route.
Leo, what's going on for you? I know you may not be able to stay on. Talk to us what's happening in your world right now.
So I just received Botox, which, in pop culture, we think of it as lines and wrinkles. Well, for the SPS community, this is a very, I think, important and possibly underused treatment for it's local. So it's not a systemic treatment that goes throughout the body, but rather it targets, they call it chemical denervation. So you're using the botulinum toxin to actually paralyze the muscle, which then makes it not painful. Our spasticity makes the pain. And so by getting Botox, I get it from the lower back of my head all the way down my back. My neck and traps have plagued me my whole life with just like a background pain. And now with Botox, I don't feel that. So I took this emergency appointment today that I didn't think I'd have. Because I also just underwent a surgery to declot of my AV fistula, which I get plasmapheresis through. After 10 years, I consider Botox and plasmapheresis. IVIG did not work for me. It's different for everybody, as we'll, I think, come to see here. But I consider Botox and plasmapheresis two of my big pillars that over these 10 years have really helped me. Right now, for instance, I get Botox in my arches. I'm lucky enough because my foot arches really spasm and they just torture me. They're bleeding. My back is bleeding. I, I look like a mess, um, and I'm dropping earbuds. And this is just the fact of the matter that I wanted to be professional for this meeting, for this situation, and this disease takes away your ability to do that. So to say that this is a abnormally bad day for me, it is, but also it isn't because I'm 10 years into treatment and I really value that because when I look back at the level of pain I used to be at, it was like 100 out of 10. And now I can say to you that, like, even with the bleeding arches, and I feel like I still have the needles in the back of my head that slid against bone, I'm actually like a 7 out of 10 because that is what it is. And so I think it norms you to a different, a different
Scale, different
pain
pain scale.
level and a different pain.
Leah, talk to us about where you are at this moment. Where are you? Are you sitting? Are you lying down? How are you feeling? What's going on with you?
I'm actually lying down in bed, which wasn't the case for me before. Although since I got diagnosed, my 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 story is very complicated, and since I got diagnosed, I accelerated quite quickly. Uh, but there's a beautiful story I want to say before is I felt so lonely when I got diagnosed, and then Kimberly actually did a video on my search for a diagnosis that held on to this photograph that's called "If You're Not Dancing, Something's Wrong." And I love music and I love dancing, and in no way was I a professional dancer. I got kicked out of ballet class at 14 because I couldn't do the split. So, but it was a moving my body freely to the sound of music that it was just an experience that I loved. And the video went viral. When I say went viral, is I got messages all over the world. And then I was like, okay, so I'm lonely. This caught the attention of people. Let me start an Instagram page. And I bounced off ideas even with Kimberly, and bent not broken, autoimmune. On the Instagram there's it's autoimmune at the end, but it's a play on words. We're bent, but we're not broken. I mean, at least, and I think all of us we've met through here are like that. We're severely bent, but we're not broken because we're strong women. But I wasn't prepared for this journey of the last 3 years, and certainly not prepared for what's happened recently in my life. I had a septic shock, very severe septic shock. I clinically died twice and got resuscitated. And I don't look like myself anymore. I mean, it's and I got denied treatment post septic shock by the lack of awareness of SPS within the medical community, and it's led to a lot of injuries and me significantly going backwards, actually going to the worst that I've ever been. I don't know if I'll be able to walk very long because I'm injured in both legs now. They're both stiff. They're both moving my knees and my ankles in all directions. And that's something that is a step that I knew maybe would eventually come, but hits hard when you actually see that it might actually become a reality. I am IVIG did not work for me either, and I am or was on this hoping to get back on, but the same regimen as Ilea, plasmapheresis and Botox and immunosuppressants. And you know what? In December for my brother's wedding, I had better moments, but much better moments. So it all came together. The recipe came together. And I insist on saying it was moments, and then that I paid hard for them, but they were moments, and they were really noticeable to the people who are closest to me, and who were, my parents and my brother and my other brother and my husband. And and to be like this 6 months later, it's just I wonder if I'm ever gonna go back to that. And that's all I want. And I have a fear that my new normal is what I'm feeling now. And that's a lot of pain, a lot of pain.
Let's check in with Angie before we move on to the next topic. Angie, where are you? How are you feeling today? What's going on with you immediately?
I am in North Carolina currently. My husband and I relocated here back in October. And so I've been struggling with just trying to get the medical community here to understand the urgency and importance of SPS treatment. I'm currently not really on anything. So I'm waiting. I was made to wait 6 months to see the neurological specialist who could see me here in this area. Luckily, he's a very highly regarded neurologist. But I've been on wait lists. I've called every day, and this is the reality we all know. For me, the most important thing is to have the ability to walk, because I have it all through my body, my entire body now. And I do have extremely high levels of pain, and that's not being addressed either. So I just do what I can on my own, and I do my own research, and I figure out natural things I can do while I'm waiting for the medical community to actually care and expedite my appointment.
The purpose of our panel gathering in this moment is to respond to Celine Dion's going public with her full story. She has a documentary coming up on June 25th, and we will be gathering again to watch it and react to it. But in the meantime, she's gotten a lot of publicity. She's on the cover of People magazine. She's done a BBC interview, and she did an hour-long documentary special with Hoda Kotb of NBC News, and then snippets have replayed on the Today Show. And I know we've all seen all or part of that interview. So let's talk a little bit about what came out in that interview and how each of you is reacting as an SPS patient. I think one of the things that Celine said was that SPS didn't take anything away from her. And I wanted to hear from each of you about if you feel SPS has taken anything away from you.
SPS took everything from me. It took away my career. It took away my ability to be free, my ability to stand up by myself and not having to have help constantly and doing things as the disease progressed, because we're all different. It's a spectrum. I had a progression that is quicker than most, and I also had diseases that also complicated and made my SPS worse. But it took everything from me. I don't even need to go into details, but I can say that by fighting and by getting up and by trying to raise awareness and meeting all these amazing, strong people and getting good feedback, it's changed me as a person inside. So there's a better version of me because I am smarter because of it. I am more emotionally available to like receive and understand people's pain or complaints. There's a lot of, in this horrible and chaotic and disgusting thing that is ruining my life, there is some beauty in it. And I have to hold on to that beauty, because if not, that's my And the beauty is being on this panel, raising
Oh.
awareness.
Celine's story and her journey is hers and hers alone, just like mine is mine and mine alone. Um, Everybody is different, but I think this not only concerns the SPS community, but all chronic illness communities. When diagnosed with any chronic illness, your life is changed in some way, shape, or form. My life was changed like Aaliyah. I was diagnosed the same year that I got married. And I went from being a very happy newlywed to on death's door, essentially. And I remember telling my husband after my diagnosis that there would be no animosity and there would be no anger from me if he decided he couldn't do this and he wanted to leave, that he couldn't take care of a sick wife. This is not what he signed up for. So there was this fear that I would lose my husband, and I'm very lucky to say that I'm still with him. But I lost my career as a teacher. I was a high school history teacher. I lost that. I lost a lot of independence. And then there's the small things, you know, the constant anxiety in your head of, oh, is this just a passing cramp or is this going to turn into a full body spasm? Only time will tell. Just that constant anxiety. So I I was a little offended because I'm as happy as I am that she has not lost anything from her. So many people, not just in the SPS community, have lost so much to their chronic illness. And I think a lot of people took that to heart when they heard that. And I know I did, especially because I've lost almost everything in my life.
I've the same way as Leah and Ali and Ilea, I think as well. It took everything for me as well. I'm just lucky enough to be able to say that my husband and I met in graduate school, and this was, can I say the year? It was back in 1998, and we were we're at Trinity College in Hartford, and we met there. Our first night ever of class, I sat right down next to him, and right away, I've never had that happen before. It was just an instant connection. And as we started to study together and then we started to date, I realized this is getting serious. I've got to tell him I have things going on in my body that are not diagnosed yet. And so I did. We sat down at a dinner and I said, well, I've got something to tell you. And here's what's been happening. And I'm not really sure what they're going to diagnose. It feels like something very serious. So, I was sort of giving him his out before we even got married. And he just leaned over the table and grabbed my hands and said, I love you. I had ketchup all over my fingers because I couldn't eat properly or cut my meal properly. And he said, I love you, ketchup fingers. We're getting married and we're going to go through this together. So that is the greatest gift I've received in my life. And it's also just amazing to have such a gracious and generous and compassionate person, an empathetic person, truly an empath by your side through this just insidious disease. It's brutal. It's absolutely brutal. I'm a unique case also. The complexity of my stiff person syndrome is that it really started at my birth. They just couldn't name what it was. And my mother and I both almost died when I was being born. And they didn't understand why I was so stiff, why they had to put corrective braces on my legs and feet for the first 2 years of my life. They just said, okay, well, rare disease, the concept of anything rare or stiff person syndrome was not in their minds that year. It was more like, okay, she's found the gumption to walk and to walk fairly well. I've never been able to dance ever in my life. So I kind of just sway a little bit. Now I can't really move. So I just let my husband kind of hold me. And that's that's very nice. At least that's a good trade-off there. But I think it's just complicated when you've had it all your life and you've been waiting to get diagnosed. It is tough. But I would say, that all of us feel it's taken quite a bit from us.
The main thing for me, I'm a fourth generation physician. I came out of the womb knowing single-mindedly that I was a little girl and I used to say I'd be a doctor at 26 and then I finished residency. It was I was on this path, and I thought that my journey would lead me, to the WHO or to being a surgeon general. I had high hopes, and I it panned out. I just went straight through that way, 4 years pre-med, where I met my husband, 4 years medical school, 4 years of psychiatry residency, and then 1 year of fellowship in systems.
Well, and it's worth
Um,
saying the first was at Harvard and the second was at Yale. So you were on track to
yes.
achieve those dreams.
Thank you, because yeah, I mean, it was when the day I got into Harvard residency I'm a joyous person inside, but I jumped up in the air by myself in an apartment alone. So yeah, it was thrilling, and I went in with passion, and I graduated that program as chief resident and with research awards and professionalism awards, and then went on to do more, fellowship. And my colleagues even thought I was insane. Like, you did it, like, chill and just go work. And but I wanted to, help fix the broken system. So I was poised to do just that. And I had during my research fellowship year at Yale, I was on faculty, I was in attending, so I had the privilege of teaching, Yale residents, and it's a high level, so you read and you study. That's the year that I was undergoing that was my diagnostic, should I see a neurologist year. I had been managing with chiropractors and massage therapists and every other thing you do, and just blaming it on, I've got scoliosis and I've got, neck. We all blame things on things until you hit that wall, as we've said a few times. I think a few of us have said it. And I hit that wall and I kept going. And then I was a medical director of a multi-site addiction facility, which was my dream. I mean, I felt like I've arrived, and I love this, and I love my patients. And it was I was in massive amounts of pain, but the joy of achievement and it was so great that having it be taken away, that realization that you can't run a hospital, but it didn't take away, as Leah said, it enters beautiful things in. I haven't stopped helping people. I thought I would. I thought doing clinical medicine would take away my ability to help people. And Leah and this group and has brought me back to life, in a sense that no, you can still help people, and that you actually have a unique perspective in helping people, because some of this stuff on the educational side as well as the patient side. So I think it took away that. But I also just want to add in that I was a woman who was, never getting married, and I loved my husband since, 18. But it took 14 years for him to get a ring on this finger, because I had to wait until I graduated residency to figure out, if I wanted to have a child. And that's why I got married. And that's what it took away from me, because I was already getting treatments that for me precluded that chance for me. And so it took away my ability to have a child and to do the type of large systems medicine reform I thought I would do. Two very big things in my life.
In this group, Allie is the only one who does have a child. Is that right, Allie? You
Yes.
just had a baby, was it 8 months ago?
11 months ago. She'll be 1 in July. Um, Also, to pause real quick, the nurse is going to come in and probably have to deaccess my port. So I'll answer this question and then probably turn my camera and sound off, and then I'll be back. Yes, I had a child July of 2023. She was not planned. She was my happy little surprise. I didn't know if you could have a baby. I didn't know what SPS looked like with the baby. I was the lab rat for all my doctors. And it turned out that being a diabetic was more challenging to me as a patient than my SPS was. There were more complications up front with diabetes and pregnancy than there was for SPS. The biggest complication for SPS was if I decided to labor naturally, the strain of pushing would it cause me into a flare. And so I ended up electing to have a C-section just so that I wouldn't put myself in a situation where I just had a baby, but I'm in a flare. Um, the thing that nobody knew was whether or not I would continue to have symptoms. All their information that was they were going off of was people with MS and Parkinson's. So they said you might go into remission during your pregnancy, you might not. But we can guarantee you that it will come back after your pregnancy. It can come back the same, it can come back less, it can come back worse. So when it did come back, it was kind of a slap in the face. And I was like, how silly of me to have forgotten about all this pain. And I went the whole pregnancy going, I know it's going to come back. I know it's going to come back. But yet, even when it came back, like I said, it was still a slap in the face. Um, I was lucky enough that post-pregnancy, I got 6 more months out of the pregnancy due to antibodies, whatever the pregnancy did, where I was okay and I didn't need treatment. I was still on oral medications. I needed those, but I didn't resume IVIG for about 6 months after my pregnancy. But when I tell you I woke up one day and it was like I got hit by a truck with my symptoms, I called my neurologist and I said, we need to get this started ASAP. And like Angela has said, he said, okay, well, I can get you in 3 months from now. And I said, no, no, that will not do. That will not do. Um, Put me on your cancellation list, whatever you have to do, get me in sooner. I need to start IVIG. And he was like, I'll do the best that I can. But my daughter is my lifeline. She has given me a new outlook on life. Even on the worst days, I still get up and I play with her and like she motivates me. But there's also a part of me that is terrified that she's going to grow up with a sick mom. And there's always a part of me that goes, did I make a mistake? Did I bring a beautiful little girl into the world and I could only be here for 5, 10 years of it? I don't know. Um, but then my husband comes over, and my husband was a Marine, so he's very cut and dry. And he looks at me and he goes, you're here now. So we're going to focus on the here and now. We're not going to worry about later. And then he'll always follow up with, it'll buff and you could be a healthy person and get hit by a bus tomorrow. So what's the difference? And I was like, there's actually a lot. But you know, I love my daughter and I'm going to be here for as long as I'm here. Um, but she has made it my goal not only to advocate, but to show other chronically ill people that it is possible. It is possible. It's hard. It's, I think, twofold hard than just being a new mom, but um it's doable. But talk to your doctors first. Don't have a surprise pregnancy like me. Please talk to your doctors first.
I really need to mention something about me being away from my husband and that destroying me, because that is one of the biggest thing as taken away from me. I think also one of the hardest things that I didn't mention and I brushed past through because I've actually probably not accepted it yet is the separation from my husband. We are young, we're together. I got diagnosed 2 years after we got married. We never intended to have children. We wanted to have successful careers and retire and then go travel the world and be selfish and just be together. And now it's couldn't be any different. He's in West Africa, can't come very often. And now since septic shock, I don't know if I'm allowed to travel. Well, I'm not allowed to travel for sure until January. And it means that I see 45 days a year, sorry. And it's very difficult to make a relationship hold. And it's the love of my life. I never wanted to get married. I never wanted to get married. I was a career woman. I did multiple things. If SPS takes anything away from me, it might be that. Then I had to share that, despite all my positive.
I just I appreciate everyone being honest. Thank you, Leah, for being honest about that. I think it's really tough for me, particularly because I listen to you all, and in my advocacy since 2016, I've been trying to reach and help everybody who's reached out to me through reading, whether it's reading my articles or seeing a video that for SPS advocacy. And the biggest thing that really pulls me in is basically begging me to help them because nobody else will. Their families have abandoned them. Their husbands have left them. And they look at things like homelessness, not being so disabled by stiff person syndrome that they're so rigid. If you're out on the street, you can't even defend yourself. You know, and it's an issue too of if you have to live with your biological parents and they're not believing you and your stiff person syndrome, and they may see Celine in her interview and upcoming documentary looking great and saying it's all treatable, it's all fixable, it's all fine. And then they look at, you know, a young woman, their daughter sitting on the couch who can't move and is seizing or spasming in the chair and say, see, you can be just like her, you'll be fine. I've already heard this from a contact through my advocacy, through my publication work. And she begged me to try to reach out to her parents and explain it all to them. And I've done the best I can. But I just, the level of abandonment she feels, of just, can't my own family, I'm living with them, they see what I'm going through. Can't they just believe me, support me? Just a basic level of empathy. And not saying, oh, well, here's an example of someone who can get it all done. Why can't you just magically heal yourself like she did? And, you know, that's been the trouble with a lot of people. They reach out and their pain is insurmountable, and yet we're all surmounting it. We're all doing everything we can to get through it. We just charge on and soldier forward. For me, there is no other choice but to do that. You know, we all are doing that. All of us are doing it. And I'm just glad we have each other for support.
Let's transition on that note to something else that came out of the interview on NBC, where Celine's doctor basically said, you can get better. You can return to the things that you used to do. How do you respond to that?
That with the right combination of everything, there were moments, short-lived moments, but moments that seemed normal. But I paid for them really hard the next day or the same night or whatever. But no, I haven't experienced if SPS is a spectrum and it's a line that has kept going towards a certain, towards something, whatever that something is. And I'd like to say something that makes me hold on. It doesn't give me hope, but makes me hold on. Is that when I ask my neurologist, where am I heading? He answers very simply, I don't know. And you can take that for the worst thing that it is or the best thing that it is, because there's no pendulum that's like hanging over you. But it also, that's why I did the John Hopkins fundraiser. And I asked all the girls to help me, because for me, in order to, I don't know, to be positive, we need research.
So I realized that the treatments and the synergy of the treatments were keeping me from progressing further downward. So I know that without them, I go down, and I go down pretty fast. So I don't think that I'm on a course that if you withdraw my treatments, I know what's going to happen. I know how I'll get worse. And if you add them on, I know what they're probably going to do for me. So in my case, I feel very much so that if I wasn't on them, I'd be progressing worse, 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 worse. No doubt about it.
Angela, what about you? This idea that you can go back to the things you were doing. Is that possible for you?
No, just in one simple word, no, absolutely not. I've had just progression and it has accelerated. It's just been accelerating all my life. So I feel like I have been very mindful. In the forefront of my mind is there is limited time, and what do you want to do with it? So I decided I'm going to advocate because this community needs a voice, and it needs a voice to be heard by the entire medical establishment so that they can understand this is not a joke. It's a very real, disabling, debilitating disease, and it is progressive, and there is no magic fix. And I wanted to say one thing about the stress on a lot of intensive physiotherapies. My neurologist told me never to go work out or exercise or get into intense physiotherapy simply because it severely exacerbates your spasticity, your spasming, your rigidity. It can make, really rebound on you. For me, it always does. And they just warned me, do not go that route. You will seriously hurt yourself. That is a warning. Don't do that. So when people see this in the Celine Dion interviews and the documentary, I just want I hope everyone can remember that this may be her story, but it's not most SPS patients' stories at all.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I don't think of all the SPS patients I've met in the last 6 years that one has the same progression of the disease. They don't experience the disease the same way. Treatments that somewhat work for some don't work at all for others. So when we talk about a spectrum, that's one of the things that makes SPS so difficult to diagnose, to treat, and to understand. And so each of you sharing these stories and experiences is helping deepen the public understanding of stiff person syndrome. Does Celine's story give you hope?
No.
Why not?
I listen to my own body and my own feelings, and this is not to discredit her at all, but I've lived with this disease and felt things that this is for me, and this
But
is
what
my
about the awareness piece? Just today we learned her foundation has donated $2 million to fund a neurology project at the University of Colorado. Does the awareness piece and the investment in the science, at least initially now, does it give any of you hope?
I've been waiting and waiting and waiting, and for as long as I've been alive, I've known Celine Dion to be such a philanthropist, that, she's always donating to these wonderful causes. And that's not to say that she has to donate. What she does with her money it's her money. But, to go from being someone who's known as a philanthropist and big on donating to causes that need it, and then it takes 2 years for them to come out and to say, now we've donated $2 million. I just kind of question, well, why now? Why all of a sudden? Why not 2 years ago? You know, am I grateful? Absolutely, because I feel like this will slowly snowball. It'll go from the University of Colorado to, another university, and then another university, and then, research trials will get going. But I also just have that question of why now? Why not earlier? If you've admitted that you've been trying to find treatments for yourself. I don't know. It's a little bit yes and a little bit no, um, from my own perspective.
Angie, are you hopeful that when the documentary comes out in 7 days, that the public will understand something they didn't understand before?
The most positive thing I can say is, at the very least, Celine choosing to do the national interview with Hoda, um, at she had to admit that stiff person syndrome did take something away from her. It took away her ability to perform. It took away her voice. It's still not the same. It probably never will be, in all honesty. And she's been trying to be honest about that, but still maintain a career of some sort. I understand. um, I think that's the most positive thing, is that people are watching this for the first time in my lifetime. I'm seeing SPS on a global scale being, and this is because Celine has decided to say, this is what I have. Everyone, I want you to know this is what I have. This is what it has done to me. So it has seriously affected my life and my ability to walk, my ability to sing, my ability to move. She did say those things. And so that is in and of itself, just to get a global audience, a national audience looking at that, hearing about all of this. I never thought that would happen in my lifetime.
Is that how all of you feel, specifically the interviews that she's done, the coverage she's gotten, and then the documentary that will come out? The hope is that there'll be awareness, is what I hear you saying. You're grateful for that. But then what else?
It's sort of the same as when she first came out and said, I have SPS. I was like, whoa, we have our Lou Gehrig. And I know that's a strange thing, but ALS was known as Lou Gehrig's disease. And before the Ice Bucket Challenge, just a few years ago, which was a social media, campaign that made more people aware of ALS, it had a name, it had a celebrity attached, and especially an American pop person, in the pop culture, that trickles down through the international community. And so I think that, while hope doesn't, like, yeah, that word never kind of, gets me. I know it all kind of, it can be a tough one, but gratitude that, like, we've got a name that, like, I can tell somebody in the masses now, I have the Celine, it's the same disease Celine Dion has. And I have already tried it out on my dental hygienist and my surgical tech. And they said, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that disease existed before she came out with it. And so I think that, while being a celebrity and having a disease does not an advocate make, I was a doctor with a disease and I was not an advocate until Leia made me one, by penalty of death. But and I'm so grateful. But yes, again, it's a name attached, and it's a known name. So that's what I think that I'm grateful for that. I'm not hopeful that in our lifetime it might even fund enough research to affect us, but I am grateful for it because, like everybody has said, it might snowball into affecting people down the line.
So you just described exactly why this panel was created and why you ladies wanted to come together. Not that you all complete the story, but you deepen and broaden the story. And the other issue beyond awareness is fundraising for research, right? And so this panel is behind fundraising for Johns Hopkins, which has the only stiff person syndrome center in the world, with Dr. Scott Newsom, who is well regarded as the expert on SPS, a very compassionate neurologist, a brilliant man. His own mother died from complications of MS. And so he has a heart and a passion for finding better treatments. And I remember when I interviewed him for that original story that I did 6 years ago, and I asked about chances for finding a cure, because every consumer investigative medical reporter, they always want to know where is the cure, and he just tried to say and be realistic. everybody wants to say the C word. Right now, we're trying to focus on the T word and better treatments that exactly as each of you has described, at the very least, reduce pain and improve the quality of life.
He uses vitamin P, which means positive. Whenever I get a bit, so I'm grateful for this doctor. I'm very grateful for him.
That's right.
So I have to hide the vitamin P because I get that a lot. Keep going with the vitamin P.
At the first time I had a neuroimmunology fellow with Dr. Newsom, my heart soared because I was like, this is becoming a thing. And then when I got an email that it was stiff person syndrome center, Johns Hopkins. And I had to read it like 14 times to be like, there's a center. I'm in a center. Talk about vitamin P. That's what those kind of things give me hope, because it's real work, real researchers, real trainees doing that type of stuff and making a center for such an ultra rare disease. So yeah, that was amazing.
For those of you who are watching, there are things you can do. The first thing is thank you for watching and listening and understanding. The second is to go to Bent Not Broken Autoimmune on social media channels, on Instagram, and also on YouTube, where you will also find the heart-to-heart conversations with Ilea and Leah. And then the next is, if you can, to donate to our link, which supports Johns Hopkins and the SPS Center there, or in whatever research capacity you can help with SPS. That is what you can do as a member of the public. I know we all plan to meet again next week after we watch the documentary together and continue this conversation. Are there any final thoughts that any one of you wants to get out there before we conclude today?
I'm proud. I'm proud. I'm proud.
Yeah, I'm grateful. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for Bent Not Broken. I'm grateful for all of us coming together and just saying, hey, this is what we all have in common. We may come from different parts of the world. We may have different life experiences, but this brings us together. And in that way, we not only support each other, we support the entire SPS community. And we help doctors understand our condition better, much, much better. They're grateful to us for all of our advocacy work. They're grateful to Leah and Bent Not Broken for all the advocacy work on that channel, on YouTube and Instagram. So it's made a huge difference, and I'm grateful.
Well, I just want to say how moved I am by each of you, and humbled that each of you is working through tremendous pain and fear and a lot of other very difficult emotions to advocate on behalf of yourself and everyone else who suffers from this disease. You want to change the face of it. You want to make it better. And through awareness, through sharing your stories, through fundraising, you're going to drive the research forward. And so I applaud each of you for standing up when you literally can't even stand. So let's continue this conversation next week, and big hugs to each of you.
Thank you.